just on the remaining sort of fixtures in terms of the league, you've 6 games to go. You're nearly there in terms of safety, in terms of the championship. Is it really looking at probably 9 points? Will 9 points out of the last 6 games be good enough, do you think, to sort of clinch your status?
Well, that's your opinion that we're nearly there. It's so congested at the bottom. We're under no illusions about how difficult the running is, regardless of who we're playing. We've not put a points target on it. We can't control what that end points tally is. We've just got to try and get as many points as we possibly can over the course of those next 6 games starting this weekend. We picked up five points from the last 3 games. We want to keep on going in the right direction. And every time we pick up points, then it puts more and more pressure on those around us and those below us. Like I say, we're under no illusions about how difficult our running is. It has been throughout the last few months, let alone the last few games. But we want to relish it. We want to look forward to it. We want to still find some sort of enjoyment within it, despite the pressure cooker that we're working in.
And obviously the capture of our former Ireland under-21 captain on loan there, Conor Coventry from West Ham there in January. He's obviously playing that anchorman role for you in front of the back for how pivotal of a signing has been Conor for you in terms of the second half of the season. And he's a player that you were so determined and keen to get. I imagine there was an awful lot of competition for him in terms of securing his services there in January.
Look, he's been important for us, no question. Also, we have to talk about losing Dan Barlaser. That was something we felt was coming. So we worked hard to get not a like-for-like replacement in, but someone who could fill the midfield positions. And Conor is having his first run of Championship football. I know he's had a taste of it in the past. He'll have learnt so much in this, 15 to 20 games. He'll go back to West Ham in much better shape, better understanding of his own game. I feel he's improving, as all young players do. They have a few ups and downs in relation to their form and the rhythm of their game. Constantly getting tested at the highest possible level in terms of Championship football, and he's coming through it. He picked up an early booking at Norwich, and I was able to trust a young player to understand what was needed for the remainder of the game because he was up against some excellent players. I still think there's more to come from him. I want more in terms of set piece quality, creation, goals, attempts on goals, a bit more in terms of speed in his game. But we've been really pleased with what Conor's contributed so far, and he'll learn a lot more about himself as much as I'll learn about him. He'll learn a lot more about himself over the next 6 games.
And Chiedozie Ogbene, obviously, he's been in sparkling form for the international team in Ireland. He tore Benjamin Pavard to pieces when Ireland played France, really. How was that sort of international sort of form being able to bring it back to club level? Do you have noticed a bounce on Chiedozie every time he comes back to Rotherham after being away with Ireland? He seems to be enjoying his international football, and has that helped and benefited Rotherham?
Yeah, I believe so. As all players are, his confidence always plays a part. You don't get any bigger boost of confidence than playing as well as he did against one of the best teams in the world. And his form generally has been consistently good for ourselves. Same with Conor. I'm one of those managers who always wants more. I always want more from any single one of our playing personnel. And Chio's no different. And we'll keep on pushing that within his game. But there's also an understanding that he's our star man, our main man. He's got threats which no one else has got within our team. So opposition know that and try and nullify him as much as anyone else in the starting group. Even more so the style of play we have. But his performance is like he's working so hard. He's going above and beyond in terms of where his body is at. And he's one we can almost take for granted because he's so resilient in terms of his body. But his body is such a finely tuned vessel which will take him to the high ends of English football, if not on the world stage. You speak about the international stage. And we're delighted he feels good whether he plays for Ireland or for ourselves.
And towards the bottom end of the table, there's a good lot of teams that are beginning to find form. Neil Warnock has sort of turned Huddersfield's fortunes around. QPR seem to be finding a bit of form as well under Gareth Ainsworth. So it's going to be, as you said, it's going to be a battle all the way to the end as well in terms of securing that sort of status. So how important has been the run of form of late for Rotherham, unbeaten in 3, but you're coming up against a team now that are unbeaten in 9. the weekend in terms of Luton, and we've only conceded 4 goals in the last in those last games as well.
Yeah, I mean, people look at form, rightly so, because it tells some sort of story. But at Championship level, it's almost irrelevant. It just goes out the window. I know that's a cliche saying for Championship, but the results you get, there's no shocks. Bottom teams beat the top teams constantly. It's so difficult to stay consistent. The best teams are able to do that, hence why they're where they are in the league table. The rest of us are fighting towards that. But we don't study opposition form. We can't go into the detail of it because we know that if we put our best out there on any given Saturday or any game of football, then we'll be a match for anyone in this league. I think we've shown that consistently with some of the results and performances we've had throughout the course of the season. That's what we're aiming to do against the third place team in Luton and then the champions elect when we play Burnley. It's what we try and do every single game. And we know that if we keep putting our best out there, that gives us a really solid chance of staying in the league. But we know the form elsewhere. We just can't control that.
And Matt, finally for me, I suppose you're not going to say it, but and probably hindsight, looking out there, the media sort of perspective will deem that Wigan and Blackpool are already gone, and that it's probably 3 or 4 teams fighting out for that sort of last spot, which and to try and preserve their status, which Reading unfortunately hold at the moment. In terms of that sort of looking, you just said you're not looking ahead, you're taking it one game at a time. Is it the hope and ideal for every manager that obviously that you can have that sort of object secured before the final day of the season in terms of that thing? Because final day of the season jitters can go anywhere.
Yeah, you want to get as many points as you possibly can before the last game, before the next to last game. You know, like I say, we're feeling good about our game at the moment in terms of our performances. We know how difficult the next few games are, and how important it is to keep on picking up points. What happens at the bottom is people always, they don't assume, they always try and figure out who needs what and who's going to win at this game. How many points each and every team need in terms of safety and what's the magic number. We got no control over that whatsoever. Wigan and Blackpool could pick up form like you just mentioned about other clubs and win 3 games on the bounce, and they're right back in it. We just have to keep on focusing on ourselves. That's all we can control. We're almost in charge of our destiny for this season. And that's something the players care deeply about, something I care deeply about. And within that, if we are successful in staying in the league, then we can look at the other clubs who maybe we've finished above or around and see what's happened elsewhere, because it is constantly a learning curve for myself and this group of staff, but more importantly, the players. And no matter what happens at the end, we'll be better for it. But we certainly are trying our hardest to avoid last day jitters. Those jitters aren't just on the last day, they should be there on the first day. No game's any different than the other. So we understand that more points at an early stage will just relieve the pressure valves a little bit.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Jim, I'll send you the recording a bit later on if that's all right.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.